It started like any quiet evening in the sleepy town of Marlowe Ridge. The sun was dipping behind the pines, casting long shadows across cracked sidewalks and front yards littered with forgotten toys. Families were finishing dinner. Stores were locking up. Nothing ever really happened here, until that dog came running. He wasn't just lost, he was terrified. A German shepherd, coated in streaks of dried blood and dirt, sprinted down Main Street like something invisible and monstrous was chasing him. His tongue hung out in exhaustion. His legs trembled but didn't stop. Behind him, the unmistakable sound of a beat-up pickup truck echoed against the buildings. Tires squealing, engine groaning. A man's voice barked from the window, furious, commanding, "Max, get back here!" But the dog didn't look back. Locals looked on in confusion and growing unease. A group of teenagers dropped their sodas outside the gas station. An elderly man stopped mowing his lawn mid-track, and a young boy on a bicycle skidded to a halt, whispering to his mom, "Isn't that the dog from the Peterson yard?" Everyone knew that yard. Everyone feared it. The dog, Max, made it past 2 intersections, nearly colliding with a van, and disappeared down the alley behind Decker's Hardware. He collapsed behind a dumpster, panting hard, body shaking, as though he'd just escaped death itself. The clerk inside, Carol, a widow who'd worked at the store for decades, watched from the back window. She would later say she didn't notice the blood first. She noticed the eyes, the panic, the kind that sticks in your soul. Minutes later, the truck crept into the alley. Slowly now. Calm. Too calm. A man stepped out. Tall. Bald. Wearing sunglasses even though the sun had dipped below the horizon. He knocked on the store's back door, flashing a tight-lipped smile. "My dog's a retired K9, he said smoothly. "He gets a little jumpy sometimes. I just want to bring him home." But Carol lied. She didn't know why, just that something in her gut screamed not to trust him. "Haven't seen any dog," she said, and locked the door behind him. That night, 2 miles from town, Leah Hensley, a retired school teacher living alone in a weathered farmhouse, found the dog curled under her porch swing. At first, she thought he was a coyote. His fur was rough and patchy. His ribs showed. But when she opened the door, he didn't growl. He didn't bark. He just looked at her with pleading eyes. Eyes that had seen too much. She didn't call the number on his collar. Instead, she brought out a bowl of water and warmed up some leftover roast chicken. Then she sat beside him all night with a flashlight in one hand and a baseball bat in the other. Something told her someone would come looking, but no one came. Not that night. The next morning, a rusted gray truck drove slowly past her property, twice. Back in town, whispers filled the barbershop and grocery store. "That dog's got scars. I heard yelling from that house for weeks. Remember when animal control came and left 5 minutes later?" People were uneasy, but still silent. Marlowe Ridge wasn't the kind of town that poked its nose too deep into anyone's business. That would change. Max didn't leave. He stayed by Leah's side like he'd always belonged there. He limped less each day, ate better, slept, but he never barked, never played, never wagged his tail. And every time a car passed on the gravel road, he stiffened, watching, waiting, like danger was always 1 second away. Leah's friend Margaret noticed it too. "That dog's trained," she said over sweet tea. "Disciplined, but there's more. He's hiding from something." Then Leah found the tattoo. While brushing the dirt out of Max's coat one night, her fingers passed over something unusual beneath a scar just below his right shoulder blade. faint blue ink, 4037K9. Her heart stopped. The next day, she called her nephew Brian, a vet tech in Montgomery. He came by that evening with a scanner. Max had a microchip, and it told a story. Max had once belonged to the military, trained in explosives detection, deployed 3 times, retired honorably, adopted by a handler, a man who, after being discharged, returned home with demons that never left. That man had bought the old Peterson property 2 months ago, and somewhere along the way, something had gone very, very wrong. Hank, a retired officer in town, confirmed the worst. He'd served with men like that. That dog's seen combat, he said, but he's more afraid now than any battlefield. This isn't war trauma. This is personal. It wasn't long before the truth began to surface. A local delivery driver finally came forward, saying he'd once seen the man drag Max by a chain across the yard, kicking him repeatedly. Another neighbor confessed she'd heard screams, animal and human, late into the night. People started talking. And then someone found something behind the Peterson property. A buried box, shallow, filled with torn-up dog training gear, broken shock collars, and bloodied cloth. Authorities were contacted. The man, whose name was later revealed as Gregory Shaw, was gone, vanished overnight. But he'd left behind a trail of cruelty, pain, and mystery. Investigators believe Max was the only surviving dog out of at least 4. The others, never found. Laya, shaken but furious, agreed to testify. And Max, he stayed. For weeks, the town stood behind Laya. Donations poured in. People offered food, supplies, and even security. A GoFundMe was set up for Max's care. He started barking again, once at the mailman, and he wagged his tail. Once at a little girl who brought him a stuffed toy shaped like a soldier. Healing wasn't fast or easy, but it began. Today, Max walks with a slight limp, but his eyes are softer. He sleeps at the foot of Laya's bed. He chases butterflies in the field. And every so often, when a truck drives by, he still lifts his head, just in case. But he no longer trembles. The mysterious man may never be found. But Max was found. Rescued by a woman who didn't ask questions, just listened to her heart. And thanks to her, the entire town remembered what it meant to care, to act, to stand up. Because sometimes, a dog isn't just a dog. He's a survivor, a soldier, and a silent call for justice. If this story touched your heart, don't leave without hitting that subscribe button. There are so many unheard voices. Some bark, some cry, and some suffer in silence. Here on this channel, we bring their stories to light. So be a part of this journey. Be their voice. Subscribe now, and never miss a story that matters.